Yo, what's up, guys? It's Storm bringing you guys a new OTA update. This week we received a quite handful of buffs and nerfs, and some shifts actually to the cards in Marvel Snap. As you can see on screen, the first card that we have here is Arisheim. Now, Arisheim has been a pain point in the community for a while now. It's a card that just allowed you to just kind of cheat the game. Extra energy at the cost of having extra cards ended up being a good deal at the end of the day, because many of the cards in Marvel Snap are generally good. And if you're a good player, you know how to link some of these cards together, especially since sometimes you get a card that you put in your starting deck more often than not, because I feel as though Arisheim didn't put enough cards in your deck. Going from at the start of the game, +1 energy, shuffle 15 random cards into your deck, to game start, shuffle 12 new cards into your deck, but on turn 3 you get the plus max energy. Overall, I would say that this change it's a nerf, right? It is a nerf, don't get me wrong, because you know, not having that extra energy for the first 2 turns of the game is problematic for a deck that's essentially just throwing cards into your own deck. But the interesting part of this is that they lowered the amount of cards that go into your deck from 15 to 12. May not seem like a lot, but when you're already running a 12 card deck, it's not as bad as it may seem. Yeah, you don't have that energy, but some of the best cards in this game are cards that are 3 cost cards, or 4, well, 3s and ups, right? The 1s and 2s respectfully are good, right? But you really get some of the best abilities from your 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6 costs, right? So once you get that energy on turn 3, I don't really think it's too much of a problem that they nerfed Arisheim in this way, because if anything, it's a nerf, but it's also a shift, right? Because it's less cards now disrupting your play patterns. You do lose the energy, but less randomness is always best. I feel as though the previous iteration of Arisheim is definitely better, though. Let's not act like this original 7/7 plus max energy, shuffle 15 cards into your deck is not better, but I don't think this nerf is as bad as some people might think. Okay, so let's move on to Black Widow. Black Widow definitely got a nerf. She lost 1 point of power. Interesting card, frustrating card to deal with. I believe that changing her from an on reveal to an activate was the best choice, right? I also think shaving off this 1 power is also the right choice for a secondary to make here. I do believe that because her effect is so polarizing, and getting hit by Black Widow, if they put it down turn 4, you can't stop it. I mean, it's going to happen, right? Especially if they have priority. It's just so hard to deal with. So any nerf to Black Widow, thank God, because dealing with this on turn 5 is so annoying. But I don't think she goes any lower than this, because a 3/3 is we're already losing stats. Like, it's not something you want to play. And the decks she goes in they're very specific. A lot of them are like Darkhawk or Ronin stuff, and there are better disruption plays in the game now. So Black Widow is a decent to strong card, but the deck she goes in is not strong. And I like that they took the power off of her to prevent her from just being able to be thrown into any kind of deck, because realistically she works anywhere. You know, yes, she has synergy with other cards, but you really want her to but the way her ability is set up, she can actually go in almost any deck. So I'm glad that they're touching on her like this. So Frigga got a buff. Thank God. Frigga needed the buff. She goes from a 3/3 to a 3/4. No ability change, just a straight power buff. The reason why I say Frigga needs this is because, just similar to Black Widow, it's the reverse actually. Frigga needs the extra power, because she can't be thrown into many decks. And the deck she goes in, yeah, those combo plays are promising, and yeah, you can go over the top with them. But sometimes you just want the card that you play down to be able to stand on its own. And 3 cost cards at 3 power is not it anymore. It just doesn't match up to a lot of the 3/5s with positive abilities. And to be honest, would it really break Frigga if she was a 3/5? So I'm hoping that she goes up even more because she's a card that got released kind of weak. I believe she was released weak, especially since some of the shells she can go in can go over the top. But again, we have these cards that kind of cut the cap early, like Shadow King and Shang-Chi. Like there's so many cards that can stop those combos. You have Cosmo that can stop what she wants to do, right? So I don't know. Any buff for Frigga is honestly welcome. I'm liking this kind of change. Okay, on to Shuri. Now, it's interesting seeing Shuri go up 2 power points, right? I want to see more buffs like this because some of these cards in this game, these older cards, they struggle. You have not seen Shuri like make it into any relevant list in a while, and there's a reason for that. She was really strong at one point, but now that we have all these cards that just give other cards so much power, right? With even less restrictions than Shuri has, it's time that she finally got the buff that she needs. Um, Something notable is that she loses her discount with Ravonna. So people who wanted to run that kind of style of deck, they kind of lost the chance to do that. Um, does the 2 extra powers help Shuri go, help these decks kind of salvage themselves? Maybe. I mean, games can be won with an extra 2 powers, with some even a extra power point, you can win a game sometimes. Does Shuri specifically help with that? I'm not sure. It's hard to say. I mean, we might see a return of the Shuri decks with Red Skull, with we might see some Taskmaster shenanigans, but at the end of the day, these cards are still subject to Shang-Chi and Shadow King. So hopefully with this base power buff, they might be able to fight a lane that they couldn't before, right? Okay, so now next to the next card, so Enchantress is interesting. She used to be a 4/5. She's now a 4/6. The graphic is a little bit wrong here. Sorry guys. But she went at 1 power point. The interesting thing is, second dinner thought that Enchantress at 4/6 was not, I mean not, it was too much. Um Back then maybe, and arguably, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't, if you want to be real, because ongoing cards aren't as strong as on the reveal, right? But some of them can really get out of hand, and you can see that with cards like Gore, cards like, you have the Living Tribunal decks with Iron Lad and Iron Man. And Iron Man was going crazy just last season with Agent Venom. So it would have been great to see this buff a while ago, because we've been having to rely on Super Scroll and Rogue and even Echo. But the main person who can turn those abilities off is Enchantress. So please, 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 please continue to buff this card, because I'm honestly, even at a 4/7, yeah, it's gonna hurt ongoing decks, but Enchantress has been out of the meta for so long, it's actually kind of been insane. I personally think that her being a 4 cost card makes the most sense, but she kind of gets bottlenecked by her other competition. Rogue almost always is a better play for the most part. I mean, same thing with Super Scroll, kind of is a bit iffy. Sometimes you don't want to copy things, right? But I'm kind of waiting for them to continue to buff Enchantress, because she's been kind of pretty bad for a while. So I was pretty hyped about this. Okay, so going on to Elsa Bloodstone, I love this change. A lot of the 3 coast cards now are a 3/5 at base with a very positive ability, especially since Elsa has been kind of had her toes stepped on by Galacta. I'm happy to see that she's getting a buff. There's a few decks that actually run Elsa that, especially with Galacta too, that kind of go over the top. So it's interesting to see that they felt needed to buff her, which I do believe was the right choice. She's been struggling for a while. I'm looking forward to run a few decks with Elsa because I've always loved the Kitty Pryde package, and I think Elsa actually works pretty well with the She-Hulk dump package, where you cheat all that energy on turn 5, and then you make a huge play on turn 6. So I'm actually pretty excited to see that they felt needed to look at Elsa and to buff her. Okay, so going on to Cerebro. So Cerebro went from a 3-0 to a 2-0. I'm loving it. Has definitely been a struggling archetype. Definitely because locations definitely do not favor this card, as well as the fact that whenever a card gets buffed or nerfed, power wise, it can definitely mess up whatever kind of like version of that deck is trying to do. So I remember when Miles Morales went from a 4-5 to a 4-6. Miles was huge in C5. Having a one cost card that was a 5, especially since you already wanted to use cards like Spider-Man in that deck, right? Just enabled you to just have these low cost 1-5 plays. And I remember losing that, and I was like, "Damn, that was one of my favorite decks, and now I'm losing a really good option." So it's just cool to see that they're looking at Cerebro and looking at ways to really buff him, because this card has struggled for a long time, long, long, long time, and I think this is one of the best ways to do it. Even if somehow, some way that this ends up going way over the top with Ravonna being able to allow this to be a 1-0 or even Sarah, let it, because Cerebro has been out for so long. So this is really actually dope. I like this. Okay, so we have Alioth, the big boy. One of the best 6 cost cards in the game, going from a 6-10 to a 6-9. And you might be confused. Well, he's losing a power point, Storm. How is this a buff? This is a buff because if anything, it's a shift, right? Not a nerf. But this is a buff because this card cannot get Shang-Chi now. Now, you might think, well, if you're using Alioth, then you wouldn't be able to get Shang-Chi anyway on turn 6. The thing about Alioth is ramp is super popular now. There's so many different ways to ramp cards now between Luna, Penny Parker, Psylocke, Wiccan, that Alioth more often than not comes out on turn 5. He still comes out turn 6, but turn 5 he can be problematic. The only way to swing a lane that Alioth has Alioth, and there's still space for you to kind of reclaim the lane, is to place a big guy that's even bigger than him or to knock him down. You cannot knock down a base 9 costed card because there is no card in the game that can destroy a 9 costed card except Cannonball. Um, so now we find ourselves in a situation where, yeah, let's nerf one of the strongest cards in the game, but it's actually a buff. Um, I'm actually kind of happy that this happened because I love Alioth. A lot of people don't like it. It's annoying when you lose to it. It feels great when you win with it. Um, but is this the right direction Second Dinner is taken? Who knows? This card has been through, the chopping block so many times now. It's really hard to tell if this is a positive change or not, but it's a change, and it's not a nerf. So there's that. Typhoid Mary. Um, Definitely a card that has seen, huge meta rising with Surtur coming out last month. I would say that this 410 was one of the better cards to place out because its effect actually wasn't that detrimental. -1 to other cards that you're playing, especially when, you're playing such high costed cards anyway, right? I mean high power cards anyway, sorry. It didn't really matter. I think nerfing her from -1 power to -2 power to other cards at your location is a meaningful nerf. I think extra points of power being shaved off of each card there actually matters, because if you fill a location with Typhoid Mary and you do not have any way to counteract that negative effect, instead of losing 3 power, you are losing 6. And you can lose games off of losing 6 power. So I think this actually might make Typhoid not be popular in those decks as much. People might try to look for other alternatives, but I do think that Typhoid and Surtur are taking reasonable hits here for sure. Now this is what I'm looking at. This is what I'm looking for. Can't tell you if this is the buff that is needed for this archetype, but this is a start. Stormbreaker going from a 0/1 to a 0/3 is actually pretty good. Asgard decks have been struggling for a while now, even with the new support of Etri, possibly even Frigga. We needed these kind of buffs months ago because I don't think there's ever been a time where Better Ray Bill, Thor, and Jane have worked together and have been successful. They're so vulnerable to Shang-Chi's and Shadow Kings that I think they need a base power buff. It's hard to say that for Better Ray because he doubles his power, but definitely like Thor or something. I don't know. It just feels bad to play that deck. So buffing Stormbreaker, and I think subsequently they should also buff Thor, Thor's Mjolnir, is the right way to go. I do think that adding extra power to Better Ray might be over the top, but who knows? That might just be what this archetype needs. It's struggling too much. Okay, so when I saw this change, I was hyped because Lockjaw is hyped. Being able to put a Wasp into a Lockjaw location and getting out a Doctor Doom, a Red Hawk, something crazy is insane. This Lockjaw went from a 4/4 to a 4/5. Definitely a buff. I wanted to make a joke about running Cerebro 5 now with Lockjaw, especially with the new buff Cerebro, but that's pure cope. That is probably never gonna work. But the extra power point I think helps. I think it actually helps. Again, they're only touching these cards by 1 or 2 power at a time. But Lockjaw, I think at a 4/5 is decent. What he allows you to do by cheating out other cards is pretty strong. Unfortunately, a lot of the cards in the game at the moment, that have been added have power crept him. You have options like Blink, Iron Lad, even just OG Jubilee can let you reach into your deck and thin it out and get rid of, you know, some of those lower played cards in your hand and bring out stronger ones, right? So it's interesting to see that they felt like it was needed to buff Lockjaw because he has struggled for a while. Um, and even there's a version of Jane Jaw that I like with Jane Forster and Lockjaw trying to cycle those hammers in and out. Hopefully that extra power, really helps in the long run because I think Lockjaw definitely needed it. So yeah, guys, that's been the video. Thank you guys for sticking through and checking out my review for the OTA that has come out on December 12th. It's been interesting to see how Second Dinner has decided to buff and nerf some of these cards, even though it may have been a while since they should have done that. But yeah, just once again, thank you guys for staying around. Just like, comment, and subscribe. I love Marvel Snap. I want to keep making content, so just help me out here. Peace out.